Welcome to Autotask Workplace Training. Today's session will give you an overview of the training series as a whole, and then we'll dive into Workplace Manager functionality. Just a bit of housekeeping in case you haven't attended Autotask training before. We use the included WebEx functionality to allow you to submit questions and give us feedback throughout the session. You can hover over the top of the screen that I'm sharing with you to connect to audio. Note that your line will be muted upon entry to class. You can also access the Q&A area to submit questions and the participants panel to locate the response icons. You can respond to questions with a check mark or an X. You are in the first of 3 training sessions written specifically for new workplace partners. Welcome aboard. We're excited to work with you. Today's session will get you up and running. You'll learn how to create user accounts for your team, and then how to set up your end clients using Workplace Manager. The remaining sessions, Autotask Workplace Overview and Administering Autotask Workplace, will review the end user functionality and the day-to-day administrative tasks that can be done by you or by your clients. At the end of the session, you'll see a survey. Once you submit it, you'll be able to register for the subsequent session, which is Autotask Workplace Overview. Let's take a look at our learning objectives for today. By the end of today's webinar, you'll be able to configure Workplace Manager, which is the management console where you can create and manage your end clients that subscribe to the Workplace service. You'll also learn how to create a team for your own employees, an internal use license team, so that you can leverage Workplace internally to become more familiar with the product and use it as a demo account for prospective clients. You'll be able to identify the help resources that are available to you and also understand what information is required when creating a support ticket and how to locate that information. We know your time is extremely valuable, so let's jump right into our agenda. To get started, we want you to understand how Autotask Workplace Manager will fit into your business. So we'll start with an overview and get that nice big picture to see a high-level view of the types of activities that you'll need to do in order to get up and running with Workplace. Now, once we've established that big picture, we'll cover some definitions. Workplace Manager has some specific terms and phrases, so we'll identify those words to understand what they mean and allow you to talk the talk. Following that, we'll take a tour of Workplace Manager guided by a scenario. We know that you can learn a lot about Autotask Workplace Manager from our online documentation. We find, however, people remember more of the training when they can relate to the scenario or story that we walk through together. In our scenario, we'll walk through items like navigation, configuration, and team management. Finally, we'll show you the resources available for you within Workplace Manager. So we have a lot to cover today. We'll get started. To get on the road to success with Workplace, you'll need to complete a few initial tasks, and you'll learn about all of those necessary steps today. For the sake of clarity, when a new Autotask partner joins us, we provision one set of Workplace Manager credentials for someone at your company. Now, you can think of those credentials that we send to the lead user as the keys to your new store. It's the responsibility of that initial user at your company to update support information and then respond to the subsequent verification email. That support information will be embedded into the Workplace desktop agents that you'll install on your end client's machines. It's also the responsibility of that user to add other employee user accounts in the manager portal so that they can help run the store. That user will create your internal team, your IUL license, so that you and your coworkers can learn the Workplace service functionality and better support your clients. So if it sounds like you'll be creating 2 IDs for some people within your company, you're correct. You're going to see how to create the team today, and we'll discuss decisions that you make when adding team members in more detail within the upcoming sessions. And don't worry if that initial user that we provisioned at your company wasn't you. There's still plenty to learn within this session. So you want to sell your customers Autotask Workplace. But before you can do that, you need to get started with Workplace Manager. Workplace Manager is where you'll set up your shop so you can actually start selling the service. Now, just like getting any shop started, you'll need to brand yourself with a logo and a color scheme. You'll need to prepare your store for selling, which in our case means configuring things like contact information and who else has access to Workplace Manager to help you run the shop. Once you're open for business, you can start providing customers with Workplace. When adding a new customer, you'll be provisioning Workplace for them by branding their Workplace portal and then configuring their team and team settings. You'll learn more about how to help your clients manage their use of the Workplace service in the Administering Autotask Workplace webinar, which is the 3rd of these 3 sessions. Now, along with the customer teams that you'll create in Workplace, you want to create a team for your own company, your IUL team. Remember, your shop is where you sell the service. To sell successfully, you need to know your product inside out. And what better way than by using the Workplace service internally? As you continue to sell Workplace, you'll be adding more customers and provisioning their Workplace teams and team settings. Once each customer is up and running, they can administer their own site. They can allocate storage to users, they can add additional users, and so on. But getting them started is an important part of a smooth transition to Workplace, and it ensures long-term success with the service. So as you can see from the overview, you'll brand your business and set up shop with Workplace Manager. Then you'll create and implement Workplace for your customers so they'll walk out the door with a product, or in the case of Workplace, a service that is configured and ready to use. Let's keep moving by defining a few key terms. We have a team. So what is a team? A team within Workplace is an entity that subscribes to the Workplace service. Each team will correspond with your end clients. It could be a school, a company, or organization that subscribes to Workplace. Teams are really where it starts. Now let's look at 2 other items, users and devices. A user is anyone with access to Autotask Workplace. They could be either a member or a connection. Now, team members are regular users of Workplace. By default, when you create a user, they'll have a member type, which grants them access to most Workplace Online features. A member won't have administrator permissions by default, but they can be granted those permissions by another administrator. Then we have the second user type, which is a connection. Connections are Workplace users with a more restricted security level. For instance, they cannot be allocated storage, and they cannot create their own projects within Workplace. However, they can collaborate on projects that have been shared with them. You'll learn more about this in later labs. And then we have a device. A device is any computer that has access to Autotask Workplace. This includes both workstations and mobile devices. So now that we have a good understanding of the overview as well as the terms that we'll be using throughout, let's move on to our scenario. In our scenario today, we are a new Workplace partner and we need to set up our shop. Lucky for us, we already have our first customer interested. Our customer is very excited about Workplace, but they want to try it before they buy. Easy enough, we can set them up with a 14-day trial, which will allow them to try the service for free for 2 weeks. So let's see how this translates to Workplace Manager. Before you start onboarding customers, it's important to make sure that the billing mechanism is in place for Autotask Workplace. You can configure the integration with Workplace and Autotask PSA so that any changes that you make within your teams to user count or additional storage will automatically reflect in a recurring service contract created by the integration. Now, these recurring service contracts in PSA will drive your billing for Workplace. To configure that integration, you'll click the Settings gear on the top right side of the Workplace Manager portal, and from the drop-down, click Autotask PSA Connection. From there, you'll click a button labeled Manage PSA Connection, and you'll pop in your Autotask PSA username and password, and then click Connect. Once the connection is established, you'll be able to set up those recurring services, which will be on those recurring service contracts in the PSA that will drive your billing for Workplace. Now, the items that you can change on this page are the service name, as you want it to appear to your customers on their invoices, the unit cost, which is what you're paying Autotask, the unit price, which is what you're charging your customers, and the billing code, which will sync with what you have in Autotask. Now, you'll bill per user according to the number of Workplace users per team, and then optionally for any additional storage that your customers have purchased beyond their default allocation. Now, the default allocation is determined by your individual Autotask agreement. You'll have the option to bill your customers either monthly or annually, and the amount of storage included per seat that goes to that default allocation will vary based on what plan you've purchased. Now, at this point, we're going to go into Workplace Manager and demonstrate our scenario. We'll start by familiarizing ourselves with basic navigation. Then we'll talk about the Autotask PSA integration, and we'll create and manage a team. So here we are in Workplace Manager. When you first log in, you'll see the dashboard, which gives you a nice overview of all of your teams and team activity. You can see how many active teams you have, and then how many trial teams you have. When you drill into this little widget here, you'll see the team records. Another cool thing is that you can sort by the type of team within the Teams view. So we have all, which includes all teams, teams that are active, inactive, trial, active trial, inactive trial, or expire trial. We also have this nifty little column chooser that lets me pick and choose what information is displayed here. So depending on what I have checked or unchecked, my view for teams will change. I can also reorder the columns by dragging and dropping just like this. And I can export to CSV or Excel, as it's almost like a build-your-own report beyond Workplace Manager reporting functionality. I can also click Show Sign-up URL and include this sign-up URL on my website so that prospective customers can enter in their information and have a trial team automatically created for them. So definitely useful for drumming up interest for the Workplace service. From here, I can also create a new team, which we'll do in a bit. Now back to the dashboard, I can sort my view between storage usage by team and storage subscription by team. Now this will let me see who my top customers are in terms of how much storage is purchased and how much is being used. I can also see in my subscription summary how many total users I have, how many total internal use seats I have with no cost, how many seats are used, and then how many increments of additional storage my customers have purchased. Now let's start with the settings gear, which is the hub for that initial configuration within Workplace Manager. The first item that we see is support settings. Here, you'll enter in your support address and your support website, as well as a phone number. This is the information that will be embedded into the agent that's installed on your end client's machines so that they can contact you with any issues. The next item that we have is Workplace Manager Access. So I can create an additional Workplace Manager user and give someone else those keys to the store so that they can help me by logging in and provisioning and managing teams along with me. I'll put in their name, their email, and then grant them a security level and click Create. Once I've created another Workplace Manager user, they'll be able to log in and help me provision, and they'll also get an email prompting them to set their password. The next item that we have is Workplace Branding. Now, your branding preferences are displayed on your client's workplace accounts. You can set a color scheme, even down to an exact hex number. Now, depending on what you select, your client's portals will be customized with this color. You can also change the name of your organization as it appears, and then preview the branding before you save your changes. The next item that we have from the settings gear is notifications. Here, you can determine email recipients for product notifications from Workplace. So you'll designate who should receive information about product updates. Then we have the PSA integration. Now, when you first access this page, you'll be prompted to enter in your PSA credentials. You'll click Connect and then have the option to modify these services that will drive your billing for Workplace. Now again, the items that can be changed are the service name as it appears on the invoices, the unit cost, which is what you're paying Autotask, and that's dependent on your agreement, the unit price, which is what you're charging your customers, and the billing code. Now, once you've made your changes, you can click Synchronize with Autotask, and those changes will flow through to all of the recurring service contracts for your Managed Workplace customers. The last item that we have in the settings gear is My Account. Here, you can change your own password for Workplace Manager, and then change your regional settings, which determine your time zone. Now, I want to point out this icon directly next to that settings gear. You can use this to download Workplace Desktop or Workplace Server. You'll just select the appropriate operating system, and the download will begin. Then we have notifications. Now, this will just display any notifications with regard to product updates. Now let's go to the Users tab. This will display all of the Workplace users across all of my managed and client teams. Again, I have that column chooser, which lets me pick and choose what information is displayed, and I can reorder the columns by dragging and dropping. Now, the important items on this page are, number one, the user ID. That's the numerical value that corresponds with each Workplace user, and you'll need to make sure that you have it at the ready if you're logging a support ticket with Autotask. We also have create date, login count, and last login. In the security level column, you can see the security level for each Workplace user. And then the team name column shows what team that user belongs to. And of course, this can be exported. Next, we have devices. So all of the connected devices with Workplace Desktop or Workplace Mobile installed will display here. We have the column chooser, we can reorder, and the important item on this page is the device ID. That's numerical value that corresponds with the connected device. Definitely helpful to have at the ready if you need to log a ticket with support. We can also see fully backed up if we have backup enabled, and then we can see the version of the agent and the operating system. Then we have reports. So this is a nice little audit trail of all activity within Workplace Manager. I can see when a Workplace Manager user logged in, a team was deleted, managed, and so on. And of course, I can export this. Now this little question mark icon will lead me to Workplace Manager Help. I can search by keyword, and I can send along this documentation to my end clients or to my internal colleagues that want to familiarize themselves with Workplace. So if I search storage, for example, I'll see all of the relevant articles. Now back to our scenario. I am going to create a team. Now in this fictional team, my client is Union Oyster House, and they're really interested in Workplace, but they want to make sure that they try it out before they sign on. So I'll click Create New Team, and I'll give them a team name. Now the amount of seats that I'll designate will correspond with how many people need to log into Workplace, how many users I'll be creating. Now per my agreement, each member seat will include 50 gigs of storage that's available to be pooled throughout the team. Now the number that you see here will be determined by the agreement that you have with Autotask. So if I add 10 seats, that means that I have 50 gigs of storage available. So my updated included storage is 500 gigs. Now any increments of additional storage that I want to add beyond that default allocation of 500 gigs will have to be done so in increments of 100 gigs. Now keep in mind that each user does not have to consume 50 gigs of storage. That can be allocated however I'd like throughout the team. And you'll learn more about storage allocation within administering Autotask Workplace. Now I can elect to invoice either monthly or annually. And keep in mind that while you're creating your internal team, you want to check this IUL checkbox. Now I want to give my prospective client a 14-day trial so that they can try Workplace for free for 2 weeks. On the 15th day, that trial will expire, and I can convert them into a paid account by simply editing the team and unchecking that 14-day trial checkbox. Now I can elect to map this team to a PSA company, and I have two choices: map to an existing company in PSA or create a new PSA company for the team. Now if I create a new company, I'll also create a new contract, and that recurring service contract will drive my billing for the Workplace service. I'll specify a start date, and I can change the contract name. Now, for each team that you create, you have the option to create a team administrator. Now, that administrator is a member of that end client team, and they'll be able to log in and manage projects and storage for the entire team. Now, I can always uncheck this and then create an admin at a later date. Now, in our scenario, our admin is going to be Atwood Bacon. And I'll put his email right here. Now, once I create that administrator user, they'll get an email prompting them to log in and set their password. Now, once I check my details, I'll click Create Team. Now, once I've created my new team, I can see the details here. So the first item is the team ID. Again, that numerical identifier, that's definitely helpful to have at the ready if you have to log a ticket with support. I can also see the team status, the create date, and the subscription information. So that's how many users, and then how much storage I have. Since I've created that initial admin user, I have 1, and then I have 2 gigs of storage allocated. Now again, you can control how much storage is allocated per user within team management, and we'll get to that in a bit. Now I can click on Manage Team, and I'm routed away from the management console into that individual portal specifically for Union Oyster House. So any changes that I make here will only apply to this end client team. Now I can edit this newly created user and increase the amount of storage that I've allocated. So remember, I have 598 gigs of storage available to be potentially allocated, but I might want to start out with a conservative number and then see how much storage is being used before I give more. I can change the country and the time zone and add a phone number for this user. Now from the Edit Member page, I have the option to change this member's password or convert this member into a connection, which is that second user type that cannot create their own projects or be allocated storage, typically meant for a lawyer or someone that works with your end client semi-infrequently, but might need to collaborate on a project or two. I also have the option to resend the welcome email to this user so that they can activate their account. Now to disable this user, I can click this here. And to delete the user, I'll click delete. I can also make a copy of the user record to sort of use that configuration as a template for when I'm creating another user. Now, once you've created a team, the next step is to configure the deployment options for Workplace. But before I do that, let's head back to the slides for review. Workplace Desktop can be manually installed to both Mac and Windows devices by you as the managed service provider or by the end user themselves. To install Workplace Desktop on behalf of your end clients via Workplace Manager, you can click on the install icon on that top right corner of Workplace Manager and then select the appropriate operating system. You can also copy that install link to be sent via email. Your end user can install Workplace Desktop for themselves after initially logging into Workplace once they get the welcome email. They can also go to the Devices view within their portal and then click that Install Workplace button toward the top right corner. The user will be then prompted to select their operating system and begin the install. You can also deploy Workplace Desktop remotely via Autotask Endpoint Management. Within the COM store, we have components for silent deployment of the agent to both Windows and Mac. They're called Autotask Workplace Install, and you can see them right in that COM store tab. Now this component can be executed as a quick job or a scheduled job within AEM. Setting up the job itself is outside the scope of this webinar, but scheduled jobs are one of the core features of Autotask Endpoint Management. And if you have questions on that, you can refer to the AEM help, specifically the article entitled Deploy Components Using Jobs. Now to establish team configuration and defaults, from the Teams view within Workplace Manager, you can right-click on a newly created team and then select Manage Team. To enable silent installation of Workplace Desktop via AEM, from the Team tab, you'll click the Deployment view and then select Enable. Once you've enabled deployment, you can click Configure to generate something called a team key. Now, a team key is a unique identifier that links any installed agents to the appropriate workplace team. When you're deploying via AEM, you're able to enter in that team key within the component field. For silent deployment to devices joined to an Active Directory domain, automatic device approval can be enabled on this page. If the gathered name from the device on which you're installing matches that of an existing workplace user on the team, the device will be automatically approved, and you as the administrator won't have to log in and manually approve that installation. Now let's talk a little bit about live links. Live links within Autotask PSA pass Autotask information to a target application or website, which is in this case Workplace Manager, which helps to streamline your workflow. Live links are used to provision a new workplace team directly from a PSA ticket, or jump to a workplace team right from that company detail page in PSA. Now at this point, we're going to return to Workplace Manager and review options for installation of the desktop agent. We'll also talk about how to get support from Autotask, and we'll talk about linked team functionality. Now I'll click Manage Team, and to set those deployment options, I'll select Deployment. First, I'll need to enable deployment. Once I've done that, I'll click Configure to generate that team key. Now, if I'm deploying silently via AEM, I can copy this team key and enter it right in the component field as I'm deploying via either a scheduled job or a quick job. Now, for those devices that are bound to an Active Directory domain, I can set automatic device approval so that if the gathered name from the device on which I'm installing matches an existing user record, that device would be automatically approved. Now, once I've actually deployed, I'll see a record of deployments on this page, and I can click Clean Up to remove that record here. Now, on the configuration page, I can see that we have options for Active Directory integration. There's on-prem, LDAP, and Azure, and those will be covered in future labs as well. We also integrate with single sign-on. And then the Policy Profiles area lets me configure sets of rules that determine my end user's access to workplace features. And those will be covered in detail within the last session, Administering Autotask Workplace. Now, within each team portal, I also have a report section, just like within Workplace Manager. I can sort by team reports, user access reports, project reports, and then a category called Special. So the users report will just show me a summary of all of the users within this team, their role, how much storage they have, when they were created, and when they last logged in. I can also access a device report. So once I have those connected devices following deployment, I'll see that record here. And then projects, that's going to show me a total list of the projects on this team, who they've been shared to, and things like how many files have been updated in the last month. Now, if we return to Workplace Manager, I want to talk a little bit about linked teams. So once you create your internal use license, you'll actually have two logins to Workplace. One will be for that IUL team, and one will be Workplace Manager login. Now, to access your linked accounts, you can click on the name of the team that you're currently logged into, and you'll see your total list of linked accounts. Now, to authenticate into one of those accounts, I can click on the account name and then enter in my password. Now, it's important to note that once you have multiple workplace accounts that use the same login email, one of those accounts will become the primary. You'll only be able to access your primary account from the login URL. So if you're using a different password for each, you want to make sure that you know which account has been designated as a primary. You can change the primary account setting by clicking here on that settings icon and then selecting which account should be that primary account. Now let's talk about how to contact support. Before support can assist with any technical queries that you have, they'll need a detailed issue description as well as those relevant IDs, so team ID, user ID, and so on. And you can find a summary in this support article, Getting Support from Autotask. Now we're going to head back to the slides and wrap up and summarize everything that we covered today. Now, as we learned, Workplace Manager is where you'll set up your shop. This includes things like configuring your support settings, identifying who else will need to be a Workplace Manager user, customizing the branding for your end client teams, and then adding those teams. Remember that the use of an IUL team lets you leverage workplace functionality internally. Your staff will gain functional knowledge of the product, which will allow them to better support your end clients. Workplace Desktop can be installed manually by a Workplace Manager user or by the end user. Workplace Desktop can be installed remotely via Autotask Endpoint Management to both Mac and Windows devices. And deployment settings, such as the team key, are configured at the individual team level. Now, we looked at the dashboard view, which provides an overview of your end clients and allows you to be proactive with your support and your management. Some key features of this were the column chooser. You can pick and choose what information is displayed. You can filter by the type, so active clients versus trial, and so on. And then you can drill down into each user record for information about their connected devices. Now remember that linked account functionality makes authenticating between your user accounts easier. As an Autotask Workplace partner, you are the first line of support for your customers. Best practice information and troubleshooting guides are available within the Partner Playbook as well as our online help. If you're unsure about what information is required when logging an Autotask support ticket, check out the Contact Support article. This page also includes a hyperlink to create an email to log a ticket with our support team directly, and directions on how to find the required information. Now, the next session will be Autotask Workplace Overview. Once you've submitted the survey for today's session, you'll see a button that will return you to the registration portal for Autotask Workplace Overview. Within the Overview class, we'll discuss how cloud computing translates to the workplace service and review things from an end-user perspective. Thanks so much for your time and your attention, and we'll see you in Workplace Overview.